huge operation involved more than $1.5 million worth of drugs, ranging from marijuana, cocaine to pills. CBS 17's Bridget Chapman getting answers.
At 4 hours, 12 minutes in the morning, the silence of a suburban mansion was torn apart by hundreds of federal agents. Inside the home of the man once trusted by the entire nation was not a warm family haven, but a tomb holding $6 million and a list of 5,329 names that had been erased. But the most horrifying part, they were not yet dead. They had been turned into merchandise in a ruthless human trafficking ring right in the heart of America. What truly lies behind that glossy mask, this truth will make your blood run cold. At 4 hours, 12 minutes in the morning on the 29th of December, the silence of the suburban night suddenly shattered. Not by thunder, but by the relentless surge of federal radio waves. FBI and ICE agents were closing in around a quiet mansion, the residence of James Jack Holloway, the man this entire nation once trusted to safeguard their veterans. Upon stepping inside, what they found bore no resemblance to a home. It felt as cold as entering a mausoleum constructed from stolen honors. Beneath the staircase lay a secret basement, and inside it, $6 million in cash tightly bundled, 20 red-bound property title deeds, and a leather-bound ledger listing 5,329 veterans marked as deceased or relocated. But the problem lay in this: every single name in that ledger appeared to belong to people who were still very much alive. Men and women who had served, who had sacrificed, only to be quietly erased from the system, so their benefits could be drained in silence. The agents stood there almost frozen. The weight of the betrayal began to sink in deeply. This was not merely paperwork fraud, it seemed instead to be the architecture of a predator and the first visible crack in an empire built on the blood and bones of the forgotten. The real investigation did not begin with that dawn raid, but with a silence far heavier and more chilling. Robert Cal Whitmore, an Army veteran who had survived fierce firefights in the Middle East, was found dead in his small Chicago home. Beside him lay an empty pill bottle and a folded denial of benefits letter placed on his chest. A haunting image. The system declared that his benefits had been exhausted. However, FBI auditors later discovered $70,000 still remained untouched. The final withdrawal had been authorized not by Cal, but by James Jack Holloway himself. In that moment, the agents realized Whitmore's death was not an isolated tragedy. It was a signal, a crack revealing a far darker pattern. The deeper they dug, the less this case resembled an ordinary financial fraud. It began to look like something predatory cold, engineered with such sophisticated and ruthless precision that it felt almost industrialized. What should have been routine database audits had turned into a descent into the deepest layers of rot. Inside a DEA evidence vault sat a laptop seized from an organization runner. When the analysts finally cracked it, the screen lit up with a title that made the entire room go dead silent: United States Veteran Pipeline. A series of names, dates, airport codes, dollar amounts, and everywhere. The signature of Holloway emerged like ink stains bleeding across pristine paper. More than $167 million had been siphoned from veterans' accounts and funneled through shell companies with innocuous names concealing a colossal machinery of corruption. The transfers snaked through Cyprus, Panama, and Belize before resurfacing within the financial veins of the Sinaloa network. Holloway wasn't merely laundering money through the system, he was feeding it. But what truly sent chills through the investigators wasn't the money, it was the pattern of the disappearances. Within 18 months, 97 veterans, all of them grappling with psychological trauma, isolated and profoundly vulnerable, were declared medically incompetent. Holloway's justifying records were clinical, chillingly precise, high risk, no next of kin, non-compliant. Just a few keystrokes, a forged signature, and a flesh and blood soldier was reduced to a ghost on paper. Their trails did not end at a clinic. They ended in concealed flight manifests hidden inside a private server at O'Hare Airport. The entries were marked only with initials and coded destinations in Dubai. As the investigators followed that trail overseas, the truth hit like a brutal punch to the gut. The so-called care facilities were nothing more than holding warehouses. Veterans had their identification documents stripped away and were handed over to construction contractors for $20,000 apiece, cheaper than a forklift and far more replaceable. Survivors described 16-hour work shifts in 120-degree heat, sleeping on bare concrete floors, and hearing guards refer to them not as people but as units. A rescued veteran whispered to the agents, "We weren't patients, we were inventory." 12 were found still alive. The rest, they vanished into the desert without a trace, uncounted, unsearched. The evidence didn't merely expose a corrupt official, it exposed the architecture of something horrifying. A pipeline built not just for money, but to ruthlessly exploit human lives. And at the very center of it all stood the man the city once trusted. By the time federal analysts finished fully mapping the veteran pipeline, one undeniable truth emerged. Holloway's empire could not be dismantled with subpoenas alone. It demanded a real war. And so at 3 hours, 58 minutes in the morning, beneath a metallic gray sky, the largest law enforcement operation involving veterans in Chicago's history was launched. In a dimly lit warehouse repurposed as a command center, 300 federal agents from the FBI, ICE, DEA, DHS, and VA stood shoulder to shoulder. Their faces were set hard, radios silent. A digital map glowed bright red with 14 target locations spread across 7 countries. The sheer scale of it was truly overwhelming. Precisely at 4 hours in the morning, the Operation Command echoed through the room. Iron brake is green. Execute. 4 hours, 1 minute in the morning. South side of Chicago. A fortified warehouse linked to Holloway shell companies became the first battlefield. DEA assault teams detonated breaching charges, metal shrieking as the door blew inward. Gunfire erupted instantly. 2 armed men from the criminal organization opened fire from behind stacked crates. Muzzle flashes flickered in the darkness. One agent went down, his body armor cracking from the impact. The firefight raged for 6 brutal minutes, screams ricocheting bullets, boots scraping across concrete. When the smoke finally cleared, 190 firearms were recovered, 42 kilograms of narcotics were seized, and a ledger detailing transfer approvals, all bearing Holloway's initials, was taken into evidence. 4 hours, 7 minutes in the morning, Henderson, Nevada. A luxurious townhouse belonging to Holloway's cryptocurrency broker became the next target. The agents stormed the second floor and discovered 40 hard drives, cold wallets, and a whiteboard covered in diagrams of offshore accounts in Cyprus, Malta, and Dubai. On the desk lay a handwritten note, "JH expects confirmation before the 15th. Don't miss it." That date aligned precisely with an upcoming veteran transfer. Someone else had already been scheduled to disappear. 4 hours, 11 minutes in the morning, El Paso Holloway. ICE tactical units breached a logistics center used to smuggle veterans out of the country. Inside, they found forged medical passports, oxygen masks, restraint straps, and a flight manifest for 17 patients slated to depart within the week. On the back wall hung a chilling directive: non-compliant units sedate immediately. 4 hours, 17 minutes in the morning, Dubai Free Zone. Simultaneously, UAE authorities, guided by FBI intelligence, raided a construction camp where veterans had been forced into labor. Floodlights snapped on. Guards fled into the night. 12 survivors stood trembling in the dust-eyes, sunken skin, scorched by the sun. One of them whispered, "Is it over?" For most of them, the answer was still no. 4 hours, 23 minutes in the morning, Chicago Financial District. The final assault targeted Holloway's Overseas Coordination Office. Agents seized an encrypted ledger linking $340 million to criminal organization intermediaries and 34 international properties purchased with veterans' stolen benefits. By 4 hours, 29 minutes in the morning, Operation Iron Brake had erupted across 3 continents. By 4 hours, 31 minutes in the morning, the empire of Iron Jack began to collapse. But the man himself was still out there, and dawn was coming. When the gunfire finally subsided and the last assault team reported the site secure, the federal agents understood that the raids had only shattered the outer shell. The true machinery of Holloway's criminal empire, its veins, its heartbeat, its entire architecture was made of money. And money, unlike gunmen, doesn't know how to run. It leaves trails. Forensic accountants began where most empires ultimately end offshore assets. The first breakthrough came from a laptop seized in Nevada, an encrypted archive that the FBI's cyber unit took nearly 8 hours to crack. Inside was an investment portfolio holding $340 million spread across accounts in Cyprus, the Cayman Islands, Malta, and Singapore. The transfers were labeled with chilling mechanical precision: veteran reallocation funds, medical resettlement allowances, post-deceased payments. Euphemisms carefully crafted to disguise the theft of real human lives, but the deeper they dug, the clearer the pattern became. Holloway wasn't just moving money offshore, he had constructed a labyrinth of 34 international properties, each one purchased under a shell company tied directly to the Veterans Benefits Office. Luxury apartments in Dubai, villas in Alicante, commercial land parcels in Kuala Lumpur properties valued anywhere from $3 million to $11 million each. On paper, these companies appeared as legitimate investment branches designed to stabilize the veterans' benefits portfolio. But in reality, they served as anchor points in a sprawling global money laundering network. Each asset fulfilled one of two purposes: collateral for high-risk loans used to clean dirty money, or safe houses for intermediaries shuttling units, the trafficked veterans, through international transit hubs. Could a system originally established to honor heroes truly twist them into commodities traded in the shadows? What horrified the investigators most was just how seamlessly the entire system operated. Every transaction, every signature, every approval appeared entirely legitimate on the surface. Holloway had exploited the one advantage that no organized crime accountant or offshore broker could ever purchase: the inherent trust placed in a federal office. When the agents examined the VA's internal logs, they discovered hundreds of benefits accounts closed under the reason relocation, all processed within mere minutes of one another. The system never flagged a single one of them because Holloway had personally rewritten the alert parameters himself. For many years, he had engineered an algorithm to conceal his crimes in real time, allowing millions of dollars to flow out undetected, while the veterans tied to those accounts slept in shelters, cars, and abandoned rooms scattered across Chicago. The cryptocurrency trails proved even more damning. A series of cold wallets recovered from a storage unit in the South Side revealed tens of thousands of microtransactions, all routed through mixing tools designed to obliterate their origins. But mixers could never hide the timing. Every cryptocurrency inflow matched precisely with drug seizures at the border. The veterans' benefits stolen by Holloway weren't merely being laundered, they were being synchronized with narcotics revenue. The two empires fed each other, beating in perfect unison like twin hearts. One detail forced the agents to step back in revulsion: a ledger titled Asset Flow Forecast, Q1 to Q3. Projected more than $58 million in future transfers, all tied directly to newly identified candidates. Those candidates were veterans, living, breathing human beings listed by full name, diagnosis, and estimated liquidation value. The final blow landed when the analysts cross-referenced Holloway's digital signatures with flight data recovered after Operation Iron Break. Several signatures matched authorizations for medical escorts on private jets bound overseas. Each one corresponded directly to veterans now confirmed missing and believed to have been funneled into the forced labor network in Dubai. By dawn, the truth stood undeniable. Holloway had not merely stolen benefits. He had industrialized exploitation itself, transforming public service into a profit engine, turning trauma into collateral, and converting heroes into commodities. And as the agents drew ever closer to fully mapping his empire, one question echoed louder and louder through the command room. If this was what he had built in the shadows, then what else still lay concealed beneath it? As the financial map of Holloway's empire gradually came into sharper focus, the agents were struck by a chilling realization. No single man, no matter how calculating, could operate a machine of this colossal scale entirely alone. The deeper they dug, the wider the darkness spread, seeping into places where power was supposed to be absolute and untouchable. Holloway had not merely exploited a system, he had colonized it. The first visible cracks appeared right inside the Chicago Veterans Benefits Office itself. Internal audits revealed that benefits counselors had quietly flagged vulnerable veterans, those without spouses, without close family, living alone and battling PTSD, and funneled their files straight to Holloway. Each referral earned them anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 paid out through untraceable prepaid cards. Some counselors had referred dozens of individuals. One had referred 73. Worse still, the digital logs revealed that Holloway rarely acted alone when declaring veterans medically incompetent. Many of those declarations were co-signed by a contracted psychiatrist who had never once met a single patient. His justifying records were chillingly identical copy-and-paste assessments labeling veterans as high-risk obligations. Over 2 years, he had approved 64 fraudulent competency rulings, every single one feeding directly into Holloway's pipeline. But the corruption stretched far beyond even the VA. At O'Hare International Airport, customs officers had quietly approved medical clearances for sedated veterans being loaded onto private jets. Surveillance footage captured gurneys being wheeled through maintenance corridors instead of public terminals. Logs showed that a single supervisor had personally authorized all 17 outbound international flights tied to the missing veterans. His bank account held unexplained deposits totaling $420,000. City officials were far from innocent. In Chicago's permitting department, 3 administrators had quietly approved zoning exemptions for care facilities that upon raids turned out to be utterly hollow shells. No beds, no staff, no equipment, just empty structures used to launder paperwork before the victims vanished overseas. Each exemption required multiple signatures. All 3 administrators had traveled to Dubai within months of granting those approvals. A suspiciously convenient coincidence. The most alarming evidence emerged from the encrypted messages recovered in Nevada. Holloway had maintained direct contact with a Sinaloa logistics coordinator, repeatedly requesting new inventory assessments and forecasts on candidate availability. Each message reduced human lives to quotas with their value calculated according to the sophistication of their military skills. The network extended even further. A port inspector in Houston had cleared 3 containers labeled as medical equipment containers actually used to sedate and transport abducted veterans. A loan officer in New York had fast-tracked mortgages for Holloway's shell companies despite glaring red flags and inconsistencies. A retired federal judge had repeatedly dismissed early whistleblower complaints as baseless, shielding Holloway during the initial phases of his scheme. What stunned the investigators most was not the sheer number of people involved, but how utterly normalized the corruption had become. Every participant treated their role as routine. Just another signature, another overlooked document, another veteran quietly forgotten within a system originally built to protect them. By the end of the 6th week, the task force had grasped a horrifying truth. Holloway was not the heart of the network. He was merely its architect. The network itself remained alive, self-sustaining, self-protecting, and far from fully exposed. And as the agents drew ever closer to tearing it apart, a deeper dread settled in. If this many accomplices had already been uncovered, then how many more were still out there lying in wait for the precise moment Holloway fell? Dawn broke over Chicago with a pale metallic light, cold, indifferent, as though the city itself refused to acknowledge the night it had just endured. For the task force, the rising sun brought no relief. It only exposed what the darkness had concealed. James Jack Holloway remained at large, and the empire he had built did not collapse in silence. At 6 hours, 47 minutes in the morning, 2 FBI surveillance vehicles tracked Holloway's Lincoln Navigator as it pulled into the driveway of an unassuming brick townhouse on Milwaukee Avenue, a safe house registered under a shell company that traced directly back to his Dubai brokers. He stepped out with the same calm composure he had displayed for decades at government press conferences. No panic, no haste. Just a man convinced he remained untouchable. That illusion shattered in mere seconds. Agents swarmed and shouted commands, echoing sharply, weapons drawn in an instant. For the first time in months of investigation, Holloway hesitated, not out of fear, but calculation. His eyes flicked toward the briefcase in his hand, later found to contain encryption wallet keys, flight manifests, and a list of 19 additional veterans scheduled for resettlement by the end of the month. As the handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists, he offered no resistance. He simply exhaled a long, deliberate breath, as though quietly acknowledging the end of a performance that had lasted far too long. But the real calculation was unfolding back in the operations room. The files recovered from Holloway's townhouse revealed something far worse than anyone had anticipated: a succession plan. If he were ever captured, his network would automatically trigger the draining of inactive veterans' accounts, initiating fresh laundering cycles that required no further signature from him. Foreign brokers have standing orders to liquidate assets. Criminal partners are instructed to accelerate their takeover schedule. Holloway did not expect a fall, but he had prepared for the world to continue bleeding even if he did. Across 7 countries, arrests multiplied throughout the morning. In Dubai, 4 construction foremen were taken into custody. In Cyprus, a private banker tried to destroy records before Interpol stormed into the office. At Houston, the port inspector cleared the medical containers bound overseas that were found attempting to flee by boat. By 10:10 in the morning, a total of 143 individuals had been taken into custody. However, the victory felt hollow. The ledger recovered from the basement of Holloway lists 62 former soldiers who have still not been found, scattered across networks stretching through deserts, construction sites, and black market labor camps. Their names are marked with numbers rather than descriptions. Their fate remains unknown. When the federal prosecutors announced the charges: fraud, human trafficking, wire fraud, conspiracy with foreign criminal organizations, the public reaction was fierce. But inside the task force, the anger mingled with something darker. The realization that Holloway was not an anomaly. He was a symptom. One line in his handwritten journal captured the disease perfectly. "The system rewards efficiency. I simply applied it. Holloway has fallen, but his chilling warning still echoes. The system will replace itself. The empire has collapsed, yet the 62 former soldiers remain missing without a trace, and the true powers lurking in the shadows appear to be lying in wait for their moment." Do you believe justice has truly been served, or is this merely the beginning of something far more terrifying? Share your thoughts or theories in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so we can continue exposing the untold dark corners together. The truth needs your voice.